You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to another episode of Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcox. Glad you could be with us tonight. I've got a lot of ground to cover tonight. We're going to go back and visit a couple of topics from the last couple of weeks. I mentioned we had some pictures that Mr. Wallace Abernathy had sent me of Terrytown that we didn't get to last week, and so I'm going to share those with you in a few minutes. I had a nice visit this week, too, with Miss Maddie Bullock. Her and her husband, WB, are customers of mine. Many of you may know Mr. Bullock as a Rocky Mount City councilman. But I had the pleasure of spending a little time with Maddie and WB, and Maddie was generous enough after watching last week's show. She actually had a copy of the 100-year history of Carolina Telephone that she graciously gave to me. In addition to that, she gave me another book that I'm putting together a show for a future show that's just chock-a-block full of history about Parkview Hospital. So I was really excited to see that book, and it's got about a bunch of pictures in there and a lot of history of the hospital. So we'll be sharing that on a future show. But she also gave me two books by a local author that I was never heard of, William Everett. I say local, he was not born in Rocky Mount, but from this part of North Carolina. And he wrote these two books. One is called Coolmore, a historical novel of destruction, reconstruction, and reconciliation. This is a fictional book, of course. But many of you may remember we've talked about the Coolmore estate out on Old 64, head out toward Tarboro. I've actually been in this house. I spent a little time in there a few years back. And at the time I was in there, I didn't realize it was a historical home here in Eastern North Carolina. But this gentleman, Mr. Everett, had an interesting life for sure. And I want to just read to you about the author that's on the back of this book. Like I said, we're going to, in a future show, I'm going to share some information about him and some more. We're going to talk some more about the home. But I just got these two. But, oh, by the way, the other book is The Odyssey of an Orphan. I read a little bit of this already. Apparently, Mr. Everett was, as a small child, he was orphaned. I'm not exactly sure all the details, but anyway, I want to find out more about him, and I'll share more about him in a future episode. But this kind of caught my attention here. I just want to read a little bit of this to you. I'm going to break out my glasses here so I don't mispronounce or misread any of these words. It says, the author of Coolmore, a great-grandson of William Wallace Andrews of Pitt County, North Carolina, was orphaned when his father died of a gunshot wound to the face at a location in Tarboro, less than a half a mile from Coolmore. William Claudius Andrews, grandfather of the author, died in a Tarboro, North Carolina hospital. For a short period of time, the author was cared for by a great-aunt and uncle who exposed him to the rural primitive faith. Prior to entering an orphanage, he was cared for by his grandmother, Charity Alcox Andrews, who was born in Pamlico County, North Carolina, and died in New Bern. En route to Oxford Orphanage, the author traveled the road from Martin County, Fort Branch area, to Tarboro, bid his uncle Frederick Wallace Andrews farewell, and passed the site of his father's death and Coolmore. At 11 years of age, the author could not envision the ironic circumstances that would shape his life. He married his childhood sweetheart, Lenny McGuire, who was orphaned when her father died from a gunshot wound to the face. I think there might have been a misprint there because this is, unless it was the same thing happened to both of their parents, I suppose that's possible. But anyway, this says the two lived at and graduated from the Masonic Orphanage in Oxford. They were married by the superintendent of the orphanage and reside in Nash County, North Carolina. So, tragic story for sure in the early childhood. But in any case, it was interesting to me that he wrote this novel, and at least part of it surrounds this Coolmore estate that we've talked about in a previous show. And then this book here is actually a memoir of his life. And so I'm really interested to get into both of these books and find out more about Mr. William Everett. And again, we'll talk about him in future show when I get some more information to share with you about him. You know, I mentioned that last week, by the way, we didn't get through all the pictures of Carolina Telephone. There was about, I don't know, 8 or 10 pictures that I frankly had just forgot I had. It was a second page of my pictures from last week, and I thought I had ran out of pictures, and later I realized that I had a whole second page with another 8 or so that I didn't get to. So we'll get to those in a minute too. But the pictures that Wallace Abernathy sent me of Tarrytown Mall, some I had seen before and some I had not. But I wanted to share them with you tonight because I didn't want to, number one, I didn't want to forget to share them with you because I think there's some neat pictures. But more importantly, I'm still gathering pictures from Tarrytown. So I thought I would use these pictures tonight to kind of jog your memory. I'm particularly interested in pictures of the inside of Tarrytown Mall. The stores. If any of you worked at the mall, maybe you've got an employee group picture or whatever. I'd really like to gather some more pictures of the interior of Tarrytown Mall. They're just far and few between, frankly. I've not seen but a couple. We shared one last week, week before last, out in the courtyard area outside of Rose's. And that's really the only inside the mall picture I've seen. I'm sure there are others out there. So if you've got them or know someone who's got some pictures, share them with us. With that being said, Lee, let's go ahead and jump into our first picture. You know, we talked about Bobby Gorman, his vision for Tarrytown Mall, and how he really was, you know, almost, it was an impossible dream, if you think about it. I mean, he really and truly, he himself made the comment one time that like a bumblebee, he was not supposed to fly. He didn't know he couldn't fly, and so he flew. But this was taken sometime, probably, I'm guessing, 1961 or so. It says, shown here looking over final blueprint changes on the site of Rocky Mountain new shopping center are Joseph Amisano to the left of Toombs, Amisana and Wells of Atlanta Architects for the project, and of course R.D. Gorham, also known as Bobby Gorham, the developer. So, like I say, this was somewhere around 1961, I'm guessing, when they were standing out there in what was really little more than swampland at the time. If you remember from last week's show, we talked about the thousands and thousands of yards of dirt that was brought in to build up that area so they could build them all there. I mean, who would have thought to try to build anything in a swamp, much less a shopping center? But to Bobby Gorham's credit, not only did he envision it, he built it, and it became quite successful. All right, let's go to the next picture, Lee, if we could. This next picture is from 1963. And this is actually, there was a couple pictures that I think I may have had to myself. This is an aerial shot, of course, and there was 3 or 4 aerial shots that were included in the sets that Wallace sent me. But you can see there in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, that would be 301 Montgomery Ward is on the right-hand side of the mall, facing to your right there. The little green triangle there is the entrance to the mall there by Car Drugs, and there was of course another entrance to the mall down the left-hand side of the mall down there. That kind of a brown roof area, we'll get to a picture in a minute, we'll show you. And keep in mind now, this was very early in the mall. This was 1963, I believe it was. And at this point, the mall was really still being built. Montgomery Ward's was an anchor store, obviously. Rose's was an anchor store. And they had the courtyard out front of Rose's. But it was still early in the process. And so in later years, Tarrytown would grow and expand tremendously. Let's go ahead, Lee, if we could, to the next picture. And I think this one is actually from 1964. And the neat thing about this picture is someone, I don't know if it was Wallace, but someone took the time to identify some of these buildings. And I thought this was really neat. Again, you can see on the right-hand side of your picture there, Montgomery Ward's being an anchor store, got the biggest footprint of all the stores at the mall. And then in the upper left-hand corner, you see where Rose's was. And then you see the courtyard would have been out in front of, well, on the back of Rose's. If you consider the side next to 301 as being the front, then of course the back side would have been inside the courtyard. And then the mall entrance over there, and you see Car Drugs by the little green triangle there where the grassy area is. But you know, I got to think about it. I said, well, that's a good chunk of this mall that's missing in this picture. And that's over in the far left-hand corner of the screen where that part was added on there, where Mason's would eventually be, and oh golly, what was in there? Was it Nichols was in there, I think, and of course the school was there toward the end when the mall got flooded. But this is a really good aerial shot here. Kind of gives you a better outline of how, and of course across 301 you can see over there it's basically just still nothing there, where all those the donut place and the El Jimador, Mexican restaurant over there now, and of course Kentucky Fried Chicken, all that was nothing there at the time. So I think Crest Ford might have been there. They came in the 1960s, so you can't see it from this angle, but I believe the Ford place might have been there at about the same time Tarrytown was. So anyway, this is 1964. Okay, let's go to the next picture if we can then. And the next picture is just another shot of Montgomery Ward's, of course, the parking lot. And this picture was not dated. Just looking at the cars, I'm going to guess it was early 60s, shortly after the mall opened, obviously. But you know, Tarrytown Mall made such a tremendous impact on Rocky Mount and eastern North Carolina, and for many years it was just a gathering spot, as we said last week. You know, people come from all over this part of the state, as far away as Roanoke Rapids and even Raleigh for that matter. But it was just a really neat place to go and socialize and be around other people. As I said last week, I spent a great deal of my youth at Tarrytown Mall. And we're going to talk a little bit later in the show about Mr. Gerald Neese again. Gerald Neese, many of you remember him. He ran what was called the Marketplace Ministry out at the mall. He was also a chaplain for Carolina Telephone. And so I just have some really neat memories, really fond memories of Tarrytown and everything that was out there during the time that I spent time going out there. Okay, Lee, let's go ahead then if we could. This next picture, there you go, there's Bobby Gorham. That's one of the better pictures of him I have seen. Again, this is shortly after the mall opened, and you can see cars in the background there, so the mall was open at this point. I'm not sure what he's looking at there, but I'm sure he was proud of his accomplishments, and well-deserved too, I might add. You know, the man, as I said, defied the odds. There were those, I'm sure, that said he was crazy trying to build a mall in a swamp. And you know, we said before, it's a tragedy what happened at Tarrytown Mall when Hurricane Floyd came through, and it's a shame it couldn't be brought back. But you know, nothing is permanent. I've heard all my life for that matter. And Tarrytown had a good run. Bobby Gorham had a good run. And so anyway, all right, I think there might be one more in this set, Lee. I can go ahead and the last one. There you go. This is another aerial shot. I'm not sure. I'm thinking this is probably sometime also mid to late 60s. But you notice the steel that back far on the left-hand side there, the area that's cleared off back there. There will eventually be, of course, more stores over there. And in addition to the anchor store at the other end of the mall down there, there was 2 or 3 little shops on both sides of the mall, of that little corridor that went down that way. I think in the lower front of the picture there, those 2 buildings side by side, and of course that Sunset Avenue in the foreground there too, running left to right across your screen at a diagonal there. But one of those was a grocery store, of course, and the other was been a dollar store, been a bunch of different things. But anyway, you know, Tarrytown covered, it had a pretty big footprint if you think about all that was involved with Tarrytown, including not just the mall, but you know, the bank and the perimeter stores out there. And you know, there was just a lot of different types of commerce really compacted there in a fairly small area. And I think that was part of the draw, because you could go to Tarrytown and spend a day just doing different types of shopping and looking for different types of things to browse through and buy. So anyway, another look at Tarrytown, and again, I want to thank Wallace for sending me these pictures. And if anybody else has got any pictures of Tarrytown, feel free to send them to me. If you want them back, I'd be glad to make copies and give you the originals back. But I've got a really neat collection. When I got to the studio tonight, Lee, our control room tech, had managed to find a bunch of pictures. And I tell you what, Lee, let's real quickly run through. If you got this where you can get to them real quick.
Let me pull them up.
You hadn't pulled them up?
Let me get the flash drive and put it in there real quick.
Okay, I tell you what, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, Lee had found some pictures of the demolition of Tarrytown Mall, and some of these I had seen. There's not but I don't know 7 or 8 of them. So when we come back from the break, we'll buzz through those real quick, and then we'll get back in. I'll show you some more pictures that we didn't get to last week from CT&T or Carolina Telephone. But in the meantime, if you need to get a little bathroom break in or grab a little snack, go ahead and do that. We're a little bit early on the commercial break, I know, but I want to try to get these Tarrytown demolition pictures in if we can. So, Lee, go ahead and take us to a commercial break, and we'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
Hello, my name is Gus Tullis of Gus Tullis Insurance, and I've been helping people with their insurance needs for well over 20 years. If you're turning 65 or you're currently on Medicare, I can help you make the best decision for the Medicare plan that will suit your needs. Don't wait. Call me today. I'll answer any question you have. 252-937-6913. Looking forward to hearing from you.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
Before the break, we were talking about Tarrytown, and when I got to the studio tonight, Lee told me that he had actually stumbled across and had some old pictures that he had taken himself several years ago of the demolition of Tarrytown Mall. And so I've actually got some pictures of demolition too, but I didn't think to include them in the set that I brought. So Lee, if you've got those ready to pull up, we'll go ahead and throw those up on the screen. I've glanced at these earlier when I first got here tonight, so I don't have any context to share with you on them, but these are pictures that were taken during the demolition of Tarrytown Mall. And I guess, Lee, you took these with a cell phone or was a camera you had?
With a little camera.
Little camera, little Instamatic, okay. But yeah, it was a shame. I remember when all this was going down, and I hated to see Tarrytown come crashing down like this, but as I said, all good things come to an end, and Tarrytown had a good run, and for many years it was absolutely hub of activity for sure. But anyway, oh boy, it's almost depressing. Remind me of some of the images we're seeing on the television of the war in Ukraine right now. It sure does. But you know, that ground has recovered nicely with the addition of Sam's Club out there, or the building of Sam's Club, I should say. You know, the groundwork that Bobby Gorham put into place, hauling all those many thousands of tons of dirt in to fill that swamp and build a good base there for a mall, it paid off. I mean, obviously for Tarrytown Mall it paid off, but then after they demolished Tarrytown Mall and built Sam's Club there, it's conveniently located, easy access off 301 certainly, and 64, and not too far from 95. So it's still, that the fact that Sam's Club is there is still a major draw for Rocky Mount. So Bobby Gorham knew what he was doing when he picked that spot, in spite of it being a swamp and a useless piece of ground to a lot of people. He knew what he was talking about. All right. At the top of the show, I mentioned I had a few pictures that we didn't get to last week. And that was entirely my fault. I really thought I had ran out of pictures toward the end of the show. And after I left, I was looking, I had 2 pages with me that last week. And on the second page was another, 8 or 10 pictures that I had totally forgot about. And so I thought tonight we'd go back and just kind of revisit some of these. There's not a lot of context here, but we'll go ahead. Lee, if you would go ahead and put that very first one, I think it's picture number 8 in your list there. And this is an article that appeared in 1987, March of 87, and was talking about Carolina Telephone had invested $1 billion, that's billion with a B, $1 billion in digital switches. And, we talked last week about the days of the operator, pulling the cord out of one hole and put another hole to make a call. And well, digital switches took the place of all that, obviously. Well, mechanical switches did before, even prior to the digital switches, but certainly by the time the digital switches came along, it was a much more efficient means of passing traffic through telephone systems. And I forgot the numbers, astronomical, how many thousands of calls could be handled by each one of these digital switches. But this was March of 87, and they spent $1 billion. That's an impressive amount of money, certainly, but they spent $1 billion implementing these new digital switches into their, we spoke a little bit last week too about, how the phone company has taken a bit of a bad rap, particularly as it relates to their internet service. And in all fairness, Suddenlink and CenturyLink do have a bit of a monopoly around Rocky Mount for internet service, and it's a shame we can't get a little better internet service than what we've got. And I know some folks are satisfied with what they've got, and I'm glad that there are folks who are satisfied, but I deal with this stuff in my line of work every day, and I can tell you there's an awful lot of people who are not at all satisfied with their internet provider, and many of them have flip-flopped back and forth multiple times between Carolina Internet or Embark, CenturyLink, and Suddenlink, the cable company. That's another topic altogether, but in any case, I guess the point is, periodically throughout the span of Carolina Telephone and Sprint and Embark and CenturyLink and now Lumens, they have found the need to spend money to make their offerings better for the customer, to be more efficient, more effective. And I think perhaps it's time to do that again. Whether it's $1 billion or a few $100 million, I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's time for them to spend some money and upgrade their systems. Go ahead and lead to the next picture, if you would. This next one is also from 1987, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. It says, technology, fiber optic technology is helping to make long-distance calling in Carolina Telephone service area more efficient and effective. R.S. Hennett, a technician in network switching in Rocky Mount, checks 3 bays that handle a total of 24,192 long-distance circuits on fiber optic system. The bays were installed in Carolina Telephone's Washington Street office during 1987. So this is what I'm talking about. This technology, telephony, if you will, telecommunications, involves very high-tech, sophisticated equipment, and it's very expensive, obviously. But to keep up with demand and to keep up with the growing trends, it's just a necessity. And I really would like to see more headlines like this, where not only CenturyLink, but Suddenlink also. I'd love to see some headlines where they're pouring millions and in some cases billions of dollars into infrastructure to upgrade their stuff and provide better service. Okay, I didn't mean to get on a stump stool there and preach, but it was on my mind. All right, so Lee, let's go to the next one if we could. And where are we at? We're at number 10 now, I think, right? Okay. This was in somewhere around 1980. I didn't have an exact date on this, but this was, it says employees William Cherry left and William Proctor placed a new Sprint diamond logo on a Carolina Telephone replacement vehicle. The Sprint logo will replace the former 9 square logo on vehicles and buildings over a period of time to minimize cost. Carolina Telephone's name is unchanged, but United Telephone System, used by the former United Telecommunications Incorporated, changes to a Sprint company. So, you know, over the years, what was Carolina Telephone has gone through a number of name changes and mergers and so forth. And so I think this was sometime in the early 1980s when this actually took place here, when they became a Sprint company and changed the logo the first time. This is not the only time they did, but certainly this is one of the times when the logo itself changed. Okay, I'll tell you what, Lee, let's go to the next one then. And the next one is actually, let's see, this was an article that appeared, and I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it gets back to what I was talking about a while ago. This says, Embark offers new internet service in the area. This, by the way, this is from September of 2006. And I'm going to read a little bit of this because I thought it was interesting. It says, Embark is offering 2 free high-speed internet enhancements, said Tom Matthews, Regional Manager for External Communications. Matthews said Embark is combining innovation with added value, providing its high-speed internet customers with network storage capacity and on-demand video as enhancements to their broadband services. Our competitive pricing provides customers with Embark high-speed internet at $24.95 a month for as long as they have the service. You know, I would venture to say there's probably no one who had this service in 2006 who has still got it today for $24.95. I'd bet money on that, in fact. It goes on to talk about, you know, what they're doing, and essentially they're, at this point in 2006, offering online storage if you want to store pictures and so forth, store your files and different things. And that's becoming pretty commonplace now with a lot of internet providers offering either free or reduced price storage of data on their servers. And so it's a neat service, but you know, they had to improve their equipment to do that, and that was exactly what I was talking about a minute ago. I'd love to see more of this kind of innovation, love to see more emphasis put on upgrading infrastructure, upgrading equipment, because it's, I mean, their whole system is being taxed now to the limit. I mean, there's just so many customers and so much activity going on the internet now. You know, I'm an advocate for the internet. I'm on it every day as part of my job. I'd love to see more folks have access to the internet, particularly in rural areas where sometimes the ability to even get the internet is very limited. And for those that can only have access to the internet via satellite service, you have my deepest sympathy, because that's the absolute worst internet service there is out there, I think. If you thought it was bad with CenturyLink and Suddenlink, don't even try satellite, because you'll be terribly disappointed. But you know, again, it takes upgrading from time to time to keep abreast of the needs and to keep providing good customer service. And I'd like to see more focus put into doing those kinds of things for the customer. So who knows, maybe somebody watching the show tonight will put a bug in somebody's ear and they'll do something to improve service on our internet options here locally. I'd certainly like to think that's possible anyway. Okay, Lee, let's go ahead then to the next one. And this is from November of 2010. And it's just talking about, it's an advertisement. You see now they've gone from Carolina Telephone, from Sprint to now CenturyLink in 2010. And this is talking about the broadband service that they're offering now. And you know, you see at the bottom, broadband, entertainment, voice, CenturyLink, stronger connected. You know, there's there's so much more that we can do today with the internet and with technology than we could do just a few short years ago. Every week I spend a few hours at least, sometimes more than a few hours, on the internet looking through archives and looking at websites that offer, photographs and historical data. And it's just, it's something that in years past would have been almost an impossibility. You had to get in your car and drive to a library. Many years ago, when I was involved in genealogy research, I made several trips up to Raleigh, several different counties, to the public libraries and to the Register of Deeds office, looking at birth certificates and death certificates and marriage licenses and et cetera, et cetera. And now most of that stuff is online. If you know how to go look for it and how to go about researching it, you can find a lot of information online. And with so much demand for that kind of access to that kind of data, as I said earlier, it's taxing the system. It's just putting a tremendous burden not only on the telephone system but on the cable system too. And so maybe we can get some improvement here locally and make some of this work easier for me and you as well, the viewers. Okay, Lee, let's go ahead and then, if we could. And this next picture, I think we're at what, number 14 now, Lee? 13, number 13. Okay, oh yeah. We talked a little bit last week about when long distance marketing, this is an ad that appeared actually in March of '87 also, and I found several of these ads all in that same March from 1980 to about '87. I found several ads that Collin Telephone or Sprint or CenturyLink had put out, but it was just another reminder that there was a time when there was a competition, in fact, pretty fierce competition for your long distance dollar. So for those that did a lot of long distance calling, whether it was personal or business or both, there was a lot of competition out there, and a lot of little cottage industries sprang up with the hopes of getting a piece of that pie of long distance calling. And then of course cell phone service came along with free long distance, and it just destroyed all those little businesses that were trying to make a go of it selling long distance. But this ad appeared, as I said, in March of 1987, and it just talks about why you should use Collin Telephone as your long distance carrier. And again, no longer available as an option and no longer needed. Okay. All right, let's go ahead then. That's the last one of those, wasn't it? Okay. I stumbled across some postcards today, and this is a picture I don't recall seeing before. Maybe some of you remember seeing it. If I've shared it on the show, I can't say I remember it. But this was from 1925. And this was just one of many photographs that appeared on postcards that I found, just literally stumbled across them pure by luck. And the clarity of these things, to be literally almost 100 years old, was pretty remarkable. And you can see, I'm not exactly sure about the all these businesses here. I recognize some of these buildings, maybe some of you recognize some of them too. But you see the railroad tracks there in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. And this looks like we're looking, I guess we're looking north there. I'm sorry, looking south. That'd be the People's Bank building on the left-hand side, I guess. So looking south down the railroad tracks. But this was from a postcard that appeared in 1925, and the next picture, Lee, if you could, let's go ahead and jump onto that one too, because this picture is one that I don't think I've ever seen before. This was a swimming pool, the Rocky Mount City swimming pool. Now this was not Sunset Park, by the way. This was not the pool at Sunset Park. And I remember hearing about a pool that was behind the old public library on a piece of land there behind the library. And I'm not sure if that's what this pool is or not, but I'm guessing it may be. But this again was from 1925, and it was a postcard that was showing the Rocky Mountain City Pool. And this was well before Sunset Park came into an existence. So, like I said, if it's not that pool, I'm not sure where it would be. But I remember hearing about, my mother told me about a pool that she used to go to, and like I said, it was behind the public library in that general area over there anyway, and filled in many, many years ago, of course. But this was a neat picture, and I don't think I've ever seen this one before, but it was captioned as being Rocky Mount City Pool, 1925. Okay, Lee. Let's go ahead and then, this next picture was also in this group of postcards, and this was captioned as the Rocky Mount Mills main office entrance, 1925. And you see the crepe myrtle trees there lining the pathway up to the building. And I had to do a double take because at first glance I didn't see the building in the background, but if you follow the walkway up, you can see the building back in the back right there. But you know, to be almost 100 years old, again, these were really, really good quality postcard images. And so I think the next picture, Lee, is actually the back maybe of this. There you go. If you can, at the top, it's kind of hard to read, I know, but it says, oh shoot, can you zoom in on that top part, Lee? I wanted to kind of go over that right, if I could. If you can't, it's okay, but, oh, I know what it is. Edgecombe County, that's what struck me as odd. At the very top, it says Edgecombe County. Now, of course, by this time, Rocky Mount Mills and this house is in Nash County. So I'm not sure who was identifying these pictures. But it was kind of interesting that this picture was identified as being Edgecombe County. But it does say entrance to the main office there. You see that out in the middle of your screen, entrance to the main office. And of course the very top line is where on the very left-hand side of that it says Edgecombe County, Rocky Mount Mills. So again, someone was probably looking at these things in a hurry and didn't realize they were in the wrong county when they identified that. But at the time this picture was made anyway, that was Nash County. All right, so let's go ahead, Lee. I'll tell you what let's do. Let's bring it back to me a minute, Lee. I meant to do something a while ago and I forgot to do it. I want to do it right now before we go any further. While we're on the topic of the Carolina telephone, I wanted to share something with you. One of the books, it was actually the 100-year history that Maddie Bullock gave me, had a newspaper clipping in it. And when I read this, there was something about it that jogged my memory, and then I realized that this article was talking about an event that I was actually at. I attended this event. So I'm going to read it to you real quick before we go to our next commercial break, and it's simply entitled Special Reunion for a Special Minister. And I'm going to put my glasses back on so I can read it more better. All right, here we go. It says, from December 1971 through December 1976, there was a welcoming ministry in the midst of the now closed Tarrytown Mall. Teenagers of all sizes and shapes passed through the doors of this ministry of presence, whose aim was to minister in the name of Jesus. This name, Jesus, was the one who spent a huge majority of his ministry not within the walls of the temple or holy places, but in and among the merchants, tax collectors, and people of the street. This ministry of counseling, guidance, and sometimes prophetic confrontation was also about celebrating the life of God, the life God gave each of us to live. A recent graduate of Union Seminary of Richmond, Virginia, the Reverend Jerry Neese became known as the hippie minister. He would take these teens on bike hikes, campouts in the mountains, and even tried Rent-A-Kid projects to develop a work ethic among teens while providing lawn mowing and other small jobs to the people in the community. A celebration of community concern was used to sponsor an information-sharing gathering of more than 35 United Way and other social service-type agencies. Christian singers entertained a special concert at the mall. Art from local artists, including the now famous Michael Podesta and Jim Woods, were displayed in the adult room. A still talked about course, Peanut Effectiveness Training, was offered numerous times by Reverend Neese to help parents, teens, and their families communicate and confront when necessary without having the family self-destruct. On rare occasions, runaway teens were rounded up by Mr. Neese and returned to their parents. And now these teens, who range in age from 44 to 50 plus, will have their first gathering/celebration at 8 p.m. Saturday at Club Image. I mean, remember Club Image. These teams are now heart specialists, family doctors, lawyers, teachers, business owners, PhD and master level teachers in colleges and high schools. This same group of once hippie-looking teens are also full-time mothers, nurse instructors, and nurses. One of these teen bike hikers now owns her own bicycle shop. Yet another directs the Red Rocks Outdoor Amphitheater in Denver Coliseum in Colorado. Tickets for this event to honor Reverend Denise are available by calling 977-1999 or will be available at the door. This article was written by Steve Love, a classmate of mine. And the event took place in 2004. And I was there. It was a great turnout. Had a lot of people who were regulars of Marketplace Ministry back in the 1970s came to the event. We had a fundraiser for Miss Denise. A lot of items were donated and raffled off. It was just a really neat event, and it was good to see. A lot of folks hadn't seen in many years. And I had forgotten all about this event until I was reading this article today that was in that book that Matty Bullock gave me, and then I remembered it. I said, I was there. I was at that event, and so it was kind of neat. Okay, Lee, I tell you what, let's take it to our next commercial break, and when we come back, and we'll show you some more pictures from some old postcards. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
Hello, my name is Gus Tullis of Gus Tullis Insurance, and I've been helping people with their insurance needs for well over 20 years. If you're turning 65 or you're currently on Medicare, I can help you make the best decision for the Medicare plan that will suit your needs. Don't wait. Call me today. I'll answer any question you have. 252-937-6913. Looking forward to hearing from you.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
Well, welcome back. Welcome back. This is Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcox. Glad you could be with us tonight. Before we get into the pictures that I'm going to show you next here, you know, I'll tell you what, let me just show you a couple pictures first, and then I'll tell you something about these pictures. Lee, go ahead and bring the next picture up. This is pretty neat. In 1919, there was something called Our Heritage Pageant, and it took place down on Tar River. And what you're seeing there, if you look closely, those are people that are sitting on the bank of the Tar River. Looks to be perhaps a few hundred of them. And across the river, on the left-hand side of your screen there, that is a stage. And So they had this event, and to my knowledge, it only happened once, and it happened June the 5th of 1919, and it was a pageant, a play, if you will, that was put on, and it was a big deal. And I want to read something to you. There's a book that I just found out about today, in fact, at the library. I'm going to go this week and see if I can find that book because I want to read, but this play is in that book, and it's called Our Heritage Pageant, and I'm going to read a little bit here. This is in the very first part of the book, and it says, historical setting. With the purpose of reviving and perpetuating the memory of deeds of local interest and importance, our heritage has been designed and written. Each scene of the pageant is based on historical facts vivified by imagination. In the beginning of time, what is now Riverside Park was a hunting ground for Tuscarora Indians. White man made his first appearance when Virginia settlers immigrated this section, and from those many people of Rocky Mount today are descended. As a reminder of those early days, there now stands in Riverside Park an old post house built in 1742. And by the way, this article was written in 1919 now, so keep that in mind. This is 1919. This post or halfway house is the scene of part 2. The descendants of those first settlers lived with no fear of foe until Lord Cornwallis and his redcoats passed through en route to Yorktown, Virginia. Legend gives the story that as these passed, a man making cider near the Tar River became frightened and jumped into the river, where he remained in hiding for 3 days. Passing over such important events as the visit of Washington and Lafayette, we come to the Civil War, in which men from Nash and Edgecombe counties played so glorious a part. These men, some of whom are still with us, answered the call to war and were the last to cease firing. According to both history and the report of Captain John H. Thorpe, 6 of our men were the first Bethel volunteers. During those first days at Bethel, enemy sharpshooters were stationed in a house near the Confederate camp and were a source of annoyance to our men. For this reason, Colonel D.H. Hill passed through the company and asked Captain John Bridgers to have the house burned. Captain Bridgers called for 6 volunteers, including a non-commissioned officer, and immediately Corporal George T. Williams, Thomas Fallon, John H. Thorpe, Henry L. Wyatt, R.H. Bradley, and R.H. Ricks stepped out. After securing matches and a hatchet, the men scrambled over the breastworks and went on their mission. When about 30 yards from the camp, a volley was fired by the enemy and the men fell to the ground, Wyatt mortally wounded. The volunteers were then ordered back to camp and comrades sent out for Wyatt. At night, his body was placed in a covered wagon and carried to Yorktown, where he died. Wyatt, who was from Tarboro, was the first Confederate soldier killed in the war. How many knew that? While our men were at the front of the army of the enemy was devastating their possessions back home, one of the chief objects of their destruction was the Rocky Mount Mill, which was supplying cotton yarn to the Confederate government. This mill, one of the oldest in the South, was first built by Joel Battle in 1818 and rebuilt in 1865. It was operated by slave labor until 1852. Okay, so that's a little setup about what Our Heritage Pageant was about. It tells a little bit of history about this part of the state, and specifically around the Tar River, where the Tuscarora Indians were, and then later the white man came. Elements from the Revolutionary War passed through here, certainly elements from the Confederate Civil War passed through here. And so this play was written and performed at what some folks call Panther Island, down by Rocky Mountain Mills down there. And there was a stage set up down there. The viewing audience sat across the river on the bank of the river there. And so I found this collection of postcards from 1919 that gives a really good illustration of what it was like on June the 5th of 1919 when this play called Our Heritage Pageant was put on. So, okay, Lee, let's go to the next picture now if we could then. And these are all, like I said, they were all taken at the scene of the pageant. Oh, and each one of you, by the way, is a postcard. So on the back, just for context, I've included this back side of this postcard here, and it says, Our Heritage Pageant, Rocky Mount, 1919, photo likely by Frederick H. Koch. Original negative discarded. So I've got to do some research on Mr. Koch. I've never seen that name before. I don't know anything about him. But it says photos likely by Frederick Koch. So we're thinking, whoever put this together thinks that Mr. Koch took all these pictures. Okay, Lee. So let's go ahead then to the next one. And these are all pictures that were taken down there at the Panther Island event. And you see again there, the viewing audience is across the river, on the bank over there. The stage is to your left, and that's where the play took place. Okay, Lee, let's go to the next one then. And there were several scenes, by the way, in this play. This was a pretty big event. There you see, there's the stage built up on the riverbank, many feet above the water level. And if you notice kind of in the woods there to the left a little bit, you see a walkway. There's a bridge there that goes. I'm not sure how long that bridge was there. I spent a lot of time down there when I was a kid. I don't ever remember seeing that bridge or anything like that. But that was the stage, and you see there the people who put on the play were up there, and this is just one scene here. And let's go ahead and lead to the next scene if we could then. And this is, it's hard to see that. I see a horse and buggy in the background. And there was, this was a performance. So there was singing, and there was, lines being read. There was scenes acted out. I read a little bit. This book, by the way, that I read from a minute ago, that's in the library, tells the entire story. It tells the story of the pageant, and it tells what each scene was, what's going on in the scene. And so some of these pictures I had seen before, but I didn't have any context to go along with them. I didn't know what they were about. And I think I even did a search in the newspapers.com website, and I never saw any other reference to this event other than this one event that took place in June of 1919. So apparently it was a one-time deal. The Rocky Mount Telegram actually published the book. The play is in a book, and the Telegram published the book, and it's in the Rocky Mount Library. So I'm going to try to get by there this week and take a look at it. Like I said, it's online, but it's really not too easy to read online the way it was scanned originally, and it's just difficult to read. Okay, Lee, let's go to the next one if we could then. There you go. And if you notice, this scene depicts Confederate soldiers. You see they're carrying a wounded comrade there on a stretcher. The Confederate flag is draped across him. At this point, I don't know if this soldier's, I'm assuming this is the one that was wounded when they went to attack the house where the enemy was taking snipe shots at them. But in any case, you see they were all in uniform. It was, like I said, it was a play put on to tell a story, and to tell many stories, in fact, but certainly this was one. And the next picture, I think, let's go ahead to the next one. The next one's, I think, a little bit, there you go, a little close up. And you can see the guy's laying there, and you see his head to the left and his feet to the right on the stretcher, and his hands crossed. So at this point, I've not read far enough in the book to determine whether this scene illustrates him after he was picked up after being wounded, or after I'm assuming he's still alive, because they would have covered him up if he were dead, I would guess. Okay, so we'll assume he's still alive in this scene. But it tells a story, the Bethel heroes, for anyone that follows the Civil War and the history of the Civil War, particularly in this part of the state, that's where Robert Henry Ricks, he was mentioned earlier, and that, he was the one who financed the Confederate monument down by the falls. He was a Rocky Mount businessman in later years. Really instrumental in helping Rocky Mount, build industry. He was instrumental in Rocky Mount Mills. He was involved with the hotel, of course. A lot of business. But there's a lot of this history of these early pioneers in Rocky Mount that I'm afraid is going to be lost if we don't start telling these stories and making an effort to learn about these people. I'll tell you what, Lee, we're running out of time. Let's go to the next one, Dan. I'm going to try to get through the rest of these pictures before we slam out of time tonight. And again, they brought horses in. I mean, like I said, they went all the way with this production. It was a big to-do. Costumes, horses, effects, props, I mean, whatever. It was a production, absolute production. All right, let's go ahead to the next one then. There you go. It's a better shot of the stage itself. And I first thought, well, let me just back a minute. Like I said, I've not read the entire book. I read a few pages of it, what I could make out online. And I think these are 4 ladies on horseback. Now, whether they were nurses providing care to the wounded, I'm not sure what their story is. But there was 4, appear to be ladies to me anyway, sitting on horseback there. And if you look, it's hard to see, but across the river, up there in the woods, that's the woods, there's a few people up there still. This to me may have been a rehearsal, perhaps, maybe. It doesn't appear to be as many people over on the right-hand side of the river is what I'm saying. So this could have been a rehearsal scene too. Okay, let's go to the next one then. And this was actually, there you go, now you can see on the left-hand side, this is the opposite side, this shot was taken by the opposite side of the stage. The stage is now to your right and the audience is now to your left across the river. But you see on the banks of the river, they're literally sitting on the bank of the river there, and they're just throngs of people there to come. And this was a big deal. I mean, it was advertised in the newspaper, and people came, to witness this and be a part of history because they were celebrating the history of this area. And they started talking about the Indians, as I said, and talked about when Cornwallis came through here, and Revolutionary War, and then the Civil War. So there was a lot of education being passed on here through this one event. Okay, Lee, go to the next one then if we could. There we go. This is the book, Our Heritage, A Pageant of Local History. And I think the next one, Lee, this is the last one in the bunch, and I think this is the first or second page in the book. And it just is a pageant of local history. I can't read, it's a little bit blurry, covering counties of Nash and Edgecombe. But anyway, I just thought it was really neat. I had seen these pictures before. Bring it back to me, Lee. It's about time for us to wrap up here. But to find out that these pictures I had seen before were actually part of a pageant or a play, a lot of history there, and I'm glad I kind of put 2 and 2 together there. Folks, that's going to do it for us tonight. We ran slam out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you have a great week. Take care of yourselves and be kind to one another. We'll see you next week on more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.